Ever notice how one coworker can say almost the exact same thing you said in a meeting and the boss lights up? Great idea. Let's do it. While you said something just as good, maybe even better, and got a polite nod and total silence? It's tempting to chalk that up to favoritism. And sometimes, sure, it actually is. But more often than not, it's something a lot simpler and honestly a lot easier to fix. Your boss isn't just listening to your words. They're running them through whatever their brain naturally uses to decide things. Speak the wrong dialect, and a genuinely great idea can come out sounding shaky. Get the dialect right, and an average idea can suddenly sound like the obvious call. There are 4 types of bosses you'll run into, and by the end of this, you'll be able to clock which one you're dealing with in under a minute, plus exactly what to say that makes each one lean in. The formula that works on all 4. Most advice about talking to your boss. Treat every boss like the same person wearing a different name tag. Be confident, speak clearly. Keep eye contact. None of that's wrong exactly. It's just nowhere near enough on its own. Think about pitching the same idea to 4 different people who could fund it. One only cares about the numbers. One wants to know how fast you can move. One wants to know how the team's going to feel about it. One wants to know where this puts you in 2 years. Same idea every time, but pitch it identically to all 4, and you'll probably walk away with 0 yeses instead of 4. That's basically your boss, just depending on the day and whichever room you're standing in. And this isn't something made up to sound clever. It's based on an actual framework from organizational psychology called social styles, used in leadership and sales training for decades. It splits people into 4 styles based on how fast they want to move and how much they want to connect personally before they get there. Before we continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are interested in helpful videos like this. With that said, let's get to know your boss. The driver. You'll clock this one in about 10 seconds. Fast talker, faster walker. And if you email them, don't expect more than 2 words back. Approved. Do it. Tomorrow you explain something for longer than a minute and you'll watch their attention leave the room. It's almost impressive how fast it happens. Drivers only really care about results, which sounds obvious until you see how often people lose them anyway. Say you spent last week looking into something, talked to a few people, and there are a few possibilities worth considering. Reasonable sentence. Except a driver cuts you off around word 6 and asks what your recommendation actually is, and now you're scrambling to sound decisive after already sounding like you weren't. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple. Flip the order. Lead with the recommendation, then the reasoning. Something closer to, I'd go with option B. It saves 2 weeks and cuts costs by about 15%. Here's why. Same facts, same effort on your part. The only thing that changed is which sentence came first, and that one detail is most of what separates people who get taken seriously from people who get talked over. Phrases a driver actually responds to. Here's my recommendation. The fastest fix is... Here's the bottom line. We'll have this done by Friday. A driver doesn't want to watch you think. They want proof you already did. The analytical. Then there's the total opposite. The analytical. The one who wants to know where every number came from before they'll even nod. Where did this come from? Have we checked it against last quarter? What are we assuming here? People sometimes take this personally, like their boss doesn't trust them. But that's almost never what's going on. They just trust evidence more than confidence. And if you think about it, that's not an unreasonable thing to prioritize. Walk in and say you think customers are going to love something, and you'll get hit with a 2-word question back. Based on what? That exchange alone tells you most of what you need to know about working with an analytical boss. What actually lands instead is something like, we surveyed 420 customers. 78% preferred this version, and support tickets dropped 18% during testing. Suddenly you're reporting instead of guessing, and those 2 things land very differently in a room. Phrases an analytical actually responds to. The data shows, based on what we tested. I compared 3 options. Here's the trade-off. With an analytical boss, trust comes after the evidence, never before it. The relationship builder. 3rd type, the relationship builder. The boss who remembers your dog's name and actually means it when they ask how your weekend went. Some people mistake that warmth for softness, and it's a costly assumption because this type can absolutely make brutal calls when needed. They just want the people affected by those calls to feel considered along the way. Tell a relationship builder, you're making a change and it'll boost productivity. And technically you haven't said anything wrong, but they're already quietly wondering how the team's going to take it, and you skipped right past that part. Add one sentence and the whole thing shifts. This should cut down on overtime and make handovers easier. And I've already thought through how we help the team adjust during the first week. Same decision, same change, but now you've actually spoken to the thing they were worried about. Phrases a relationship builder actually responds to. Here's how this helps the team. I checked in with the department first. I've thought about how this lands for everyone involved. Facts still matter to this type. They just can't be the whole conversation. The visionary. Ever leave a meeting with your boss wondering what you actually just agreed to? That's usually a sign you're dealing with a visionary, the type mentally living 2 years in the future during what was supposed to be a 5-minute check-in. Growth, momentum, what's next? That's the whole vocabulary, and for them, a little confusion along the way is sort of the point. The fastest way to lose a visionary is a sentence like, well, that's just how we've always done it. Watch the enthusiasm drain out of their face in real time. What works instead is connecting whatever you're doing right now to where it's actually headed. Picture saying, if we automate this step, it frees up the team for higher value work and puts us ahead before anyone else catches up. Now you're speaking the one language this type actually runs on, the future, not today's spreadsheet. Phrases a visionary actually responds to. Here's what this makes possible. This scales well past where we are now. Imagine if a visionary already knows the problems exist. They want someone who can also see past them. The Own It email vault. Knowing which type you're dealing with tells you the tone. It doesn't hand you the actual sentence for the actual mess you're dealing with this afternoon, the update your boss wants, the mistake you have to own up to, the deadline you need to push back on without sounding difficult about it. That's the entire reason the Own It email vault exists. 12 real workplace situations, each written the way it actually needs to sound, depending on what's going on. It's free, it's linked in the description, and the rest of this video will make a lot more sense if you've got it open while you watch. What if your boss is a mix? Here's the twist almost nobody expects going in. Most bosses aren't purely one type all the time. Yours might run full driver in a status meeting, flip into analytical the second budgets come up, turn into the relationship builder with the team, then go full visionary the moment strategy's on the table. So don't slap a permanent label on someone and call it done. Just start watching the pattern instead. What kind of questions do they actually ask? What makes them lean forward? What makes them impatient? What do they praise? And what do they quietly let slide? Those 4 answers will tell you more than any personality test you could take. The formula that works on all 4. The people who move fastest at work usually aren't the smartest person in the room. They're just the easiest ones to actually understand. And thank goodness for that, because it's a far easier skill to learn than being the smartest person in the room. Communication was never about saying what makes sense to you. It's about saying it in a way the other person's actually ready to hear. So before your next conversation with your boss, ask yourself one quick question first. What type am I even talking to right now? Answer that honestly, and everything you say gets more convincing without changing a single fact. Let me know in the comments which one you've got, driver, analytical, relationship builder, or visionary, and I'm curious how many of each we actually find. And if you haven't grabbed the email vault yet, it's free. It's in the description. I'll see you in the next one.